I learned literally all of this from video games and Lord of the Rings.
Dope. Dope.
I learned this from Xenogears. I learned this from Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah.
I learned this from Outer Wilds. I learned this from Final Fantasy.
Nier Automata.
I learned this from Nier Automata.
Yeah, Xenosaga.
I learned this from games, people. Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name's Mike.
My name's Kason.
Today we're doing a topic that has been sort of like in the back of my mind for probably the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. It's been a weird...
Just 2 or 3 years?
Yes. It has been a weird 2 or 3 years. Because you go back 4 years, it's 2020, and we're in the pandemic. And I know I wasn't thinking about this then.
Yeah.
So it is something that cropped up in my mind more recently. For you, does it go further back?
I don't know. My grandma told me this stuff like probably 20 years ago.
I mean, I encountered this sentiment as a child. But what surprised me is encountering it as an adult in the way that I did.
Among peers.
Yes, among people my own age.
Yeah, this is a sign that you're getting older.
Yes. So,
pretty soon,
if that's not enough of a teaser, we can actually release what? What?
Pretty soon it'll be people younger than you.
Oh, who are telling me
you're too old again. So that's what's going to happen.
Title of the video, are we too old to be gaming? I, in August, just turned 37. We are literally around the corner from your 38th birthday.
Yeah, we're both 37 for the brief 2 months, and then I will be 38.
So we're pushing 40 here.
Goodness.
We're getting close to the big 40. And there are a lot of people in our audience who have already passed that threshold and who lament the passage of time all the time in our Discord server and whatnot.
Yeah.
So in 2020, we had the pandemic. And I played a lot of games that year because what else was I doing? I was sitting at home, right? Just sitting around, played a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we had already been running this channel for about 4 years prior to that.
This one, yeah.
So we had our podcast. We had pretty consistent content. There was a period of time early on where we were kind of doing it full time. And then that obviously didn't work out, and we had to all go get jobs, and you guys got married. And so we were all working and then trying to run it on the side, which is how we've been doing it up till now.
Yeah.
However, I got a new job in 2022, and I went to a work function. It was actually one of the very first things. So I just happened to get hired right around the time they do their annual summit. And people from around the country and around the world come to, a 3-day sort of retreat thing where, they feed you and they do activities and team building and talk about like the future of the company and here's cool stuff that we're doing and, just give people a chance to meet with their coworkers and bond and bring their spouses and, do cool stuff. Yeah. So that was like my first week on the job. I don't know any of these people. I'm meeting them for the first time. I'm hired as a videographer. So I'm brand new. I'm like literally just got hired. So I'm like in work mode. I'm here to film this. I'm not here to participate. I'm here to capture it and I don't want to miss anything.
Right.
So I'm like working. And everyone's telling me, stop working. This is a summit. You're not here to work. Just have the camera on you and once in a while film a thing if it's important. And I'm like, okay. But then I'm going around like filming like all this B-roll. And
you don't know what, because at some point they're going to be like, what? You didn't get footage
That's
of
what I'm
this
afraid
person?
of.
And it's like, I don't know anyone.
That's what I'm afraid of, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just working my butt off the whole time. And I'm going around, I'm filming people. And so, people are seeing me. They've never seen my face before. Their camera shoved in their face all the time. Who are you? So I'm talking. I finally take a break for lunch and I sit down at a table, a group of people. I don't know any of them. They're all having a conversation. I'm sitting there eating. And video games start getting brought up. And so I'm listening in. And there's a father sitting across from me who I'm pretty confident the dude's younger than I am.
Yeah.
Probably in mid-30s.
Okay.
I guess I was mid-30s at the time. Maybe he's early 30s at the time. Pretty confident this dude is younger than me. And he is talking about how in his house they don't allow the kids to have video games. There's this very conservative sentiment towards games. I don't mean like politically conservative. I just mean generally the word conservative.
Right, because everyone knows that conservative is actually a good thing.
So Anyway,
just trying to put it back on me. I'm conservative, people. Okay, just getting that out there. Okay,
I'm not
back to Mike.
trying. I'm not trying to disparage conservative politically. I'm just trying to say it might have sounded like I'm making a political statement. I'm trying to say I'm not making one.
Yes.
I'm just saying the dude is he's concerned about the effect of video games on people, and this is being conservative in spirit about something. So anyway, I'm listening to this guy. And I'm like, there's no way you didn't grow up with video games in your house. Like, we all did. Isn't that right? I'm thinking to myself, didn't we all in this generation grow up like with freaking like the PlayStation, N64, console wars, and
right every
SNES
kid
at your
age.
cousin's house, and you go play Street Fighter over there? Like, wasn't that the and obviously it wasn't, but it felt that way.
Yes, because that's what it was for us.
The experience of most of the kids I knew growing up, basically all of them. Without like one exception. And so I'm just sitting here confused about the way this guy's talking about it. He sounds like someone from my dad's generation or older talking about like how bad video games are. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm listening to this. And then, another lady jumps in and talks about how concerned she is for her son who's like into these MMO games and is so addicted. And it's like, it's just one by one, like all these people were jumping in and just like trashing games as this enormous waste of time, as like a something that keeps people from, getting out there and having real relationships in the world, and just all this fear mongering about games that was such old rhetoric in my mind. Right. I was like, did we just get transported to 1987? Like, what's going on here? This is crazy. Like, I thought these attitudes were dispelled a long time ago. It shows you the bubble in which I have lived over the course of my adulthood, in which I'm speaking with other adults my age who are all very into it, and we all felt like we grew past those conversations to a certain extent, right? Like, we're the ones coming into the workforce. We're the ones coming into being adults, and we can normalize this now. So that kind of like shook me a little bit. Or at least like brought me out of the bubble. It popped my bubble a little bit. And I'm just sitting there like, man, like these people, if they heard that like my part-time job essentially is like running a video game podcast, and like I spend this many hours a week playing video games, are they going to like think of me as like not a contributing member to society, and like I'm wasting my life and like all this stuff? And also I got really embarrassed about it. And so like anytime I'm in like a marketing meeting at work and I'm talking about strategy or whatever, and I'm like, well, in my experience, this or that, or and people ask me, oh, like, what's your experience? What do you do? Well, I've managed podcasts, this. Oh, what podcast? You have a podcast? What podcast is it? And immediately my heart just goes like, it's like a literary analysis of like classic archetypes and storytelling and like, techniques to like,
all stave off the word video game
for as long as possible.
Oh, great, man.
I'm just like super embarrassed to say I talk about video games and I make money doing that. I'm just afraid of being judged immediately. Right? By these
I have
people.
Similar experiences,
There was a guy who came over who is way younger than me. He was trying to sell me pest control and came into my house, and I wasn't interested and, wasn't going to buy, and he realized that. So he's walking out the door, and, I had told him something about the house. Oh, never mind. This wasn't the pest control guy. This was the solar guy, because he was talking about, like how much energy do you consume? I was like, well, I got a freaking like studio upstairs. Right, and he was like, oh, if you were to do that, you would need this, this, and this. Anyway, so he's asking me about all this film equipment.
Yeah, and he's a sales guy, so he's going to try and get to know you. Oh, yeah, oh, man, what do you do? What do you do? What's it about?
So I'm like sitting there talking to like probably a 23-year-old. I'm 37 or 36 or whatever. And I'm like embarrassed to tell this kid that it's a video game podcast. And so I finally get it out, and he's like, oh, like what kind of game? Like Fortnite? Like, this dude is not a gamer, right? He doesn't know anything about games. And so I'm like trying to explain it. He just doesn't get it at all. I can just like see it in his face. He's just like, that is weird, right? Dude thought I was a weirdo. So.
Oh, it's so funny. I love it.
What you said at the beginning is actually true. A person younger than me is treating me like my parents about like the evils of like playing too many video games.
Right.
So anyway, this has kind of been like on my mind for a while for that reason, because in other ways, I really do feel like I have been like phased out of like the target demographic for a lot of stuff I grew up with. Right. So like I see, for instance, the outrage at things on the internet about State of Play or Nintendo Direct or this sucked or whatever. And I watch the same thing and I'm just not, I'm not getting it. I'm not in spirit with you fellas anymore out there who are like in the heart of like the gaming discourse on the internet.
Often it is younger people.
And yeah, I mean, these are all people that are probably in that sweet spot age for all the marketing people, which is the 18 to 24 or 24 to 35 range.
The prime demo.
And I'm out of it now. I'm out of the 24 to 35 range.
I didn't even think about it. I've been out for a while.
I'm now into that 36 to 44, I think, range is what they call it. And
poor us, we don't get any games marketed to us.
That's exactly when they stop paying attention to you.
Because you're dying.
They don't care about you anymore because you're dying now. You're basically, the death toll is wrong. You're on your way out. They don't care about you. Get out of here.
You know what? The average human life is 76 or something
We're like
that.
halfway there.
We're halfway there, yeah.
So anyway, I've been feeling more and more like I don't get gamers anymore.
Yeah.
Like I and it's not even like a get off my lawn kind of way. I'm not like I'm angry at them kind of way. It's just like I don't understand what you're so upset about, guys. Like, what's the problem here? Or like just not being in the loop, just like not knowing what's going on, not paying as close attention to it. Because I'm super busy.
Got other stuff to do,
I got like a lot freaking going on.
Which is
a lot
why
of
we don't
responsibility.
get marketed to as much.
Exactly. Even though this demographic tends to have more money, it's just like they'd be buying it for the younger demographic anyways. You'd be buying it for the kids. So
that's true.
So they market it at them so that they come bug you and say, buy me this thing.
Daddy. Yeah, I remember that. The Super Soaker, the Nerf guns on Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah. Every time.
I still remember the Super Soaker XP 2000.
Yeah, dude.
You guys remember the commercial for the Super Soaker XP 2000? It looked so cool. It looked like a legit gun, and I was trying to get my parents to buy it for us, and my mom wouldn't do it.
Dude, I will never get the Crossfire commercial out of my life.
I love that commercial so much.
Dude,
Crossfire!
That
song?
That commercial was brilliant.
Yeah, it was so
it was so hardcore.
Yeah.
It was so cool. For probably the lamest toy ever made. But it looked so cool, dude.
Yeah, dude.
And the song, you get caught up in the crossfire.
And that 80s hair metal.
Yeah, it's so sick. So anyways, that's who they're talking to. And then they run and talk to us, the old guys. And be like,
we're like,
buy it for me.
Okay, well, here's some money, child.
Anyway.
And then because we don't get inflation, we give them like 25 cents. This should buy you a few games. Like, Dad, they cost like $1,000 now.
Obviously, Doom McGuy, we're being a little facetious on this. So he says, I don't think it's that the late 30s demographic is dying. I think it's that by your late 20s and 30s, your tastes in entertainment are pretty much set. So it's harder to sell new trends.
The trends is the big part.
That's true.
We aren't a part of the new trends, right?
Yeah. In any case, it has happened enough to me now, because I also went to meet my wife's family in Brazil. And I got to explain to them what I do.
Oh, no. How did that go?
Well, particularly because she grew up in a home where she was not allowed to play video games.
Right.
Her brothers were. She was not. And she was. So there was a little bit of a
very interesting
discrimination on the part of her being a girl. And this is not something girls are allowed to do.
Right.
You should be doing chores instead. You know, like, and so she even a little bit, I think, struggles when I'm playing a game and not like spending time with her or something,
or doing chores.
I think that that's been, again, enforced by parents who had that attitude. And I thought that attitude passed with our parents' generation, and that our generation got it. It was a medium made for us, and we understood it, and we were going to carry it forward and legitimize it. And that's kind of the point I wanted to come to with this whole conversation, was that's kind of the mission of our show.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we want to put video game analysis on par with film analysis, literary analysis, like plays, like freaking Shakespeare and whatnot. Like we're trying to take these things very seriously. And it's funny because I'm sure I'm sure when movies first were on the scene, like 1900, I'm sure that people, if there was a group of people who would just go around and analyze films and print it in the local paper, or they were a film critic or something, that people at the time were like, oh, you just watch those dumb Lumiere movies, like, oh, that's a waste of time. These movies, though, it'll never catch on. What you ought to do is read books.
Yeah, I'm sure that attitude existed.
And then, of course, going all the way back, Socrates hated books.
Really?
He hated books a lot. He never wrote anything himself, and he criticized the technology of the book as a way to destroy people's memories, because you didn't need to remember things anymore.
Funny.
You don't need to. You just, if I wrote it down, now I don't have to remember it. And back in the day, people would memorize like hour-long poems, and then recite them, and it was a very performative, and the plays and all of that stuff. It was a big deal. And Socrates thought these newfangled kids with their dumb paper and their freaking words and letters were going to destroy society. And he might have been right about, Greece fell pretty shortly after that. But it's funny, if you go back, every new medium...
It wasn't books' fault.
Well, I don't know. Was it? A lot of people say it was... there's a particular philosopher that people lay it at the feet of. I can't remember who it was, but he was a little... Anyways, he was a little overly critical of Greece, and people agreed with him a little too much, and it basically destroyed the whole civilization there. But the idea is that every new medium for entertainment is accompanied by the previous generation really like spitting at it and, getting upset that it even exists. And to some degree, they might even have an argument where it's like, yes, we don't remember stuff. I have a phone. I don't know anyone's phone number anymore.
Yeah,
it's all just like in my phone.
Yeah.
I used to have memorized like 100 phone numbers, like just memorized in my head.
Right.
I don't anymore. But that's because this new technology, I've passed it on to something else. It's not up here anymore. But that does come with some negative side effects as well, where like human memory is all that stuff. So I don't know. Socrates, I'm like 5% with him.
Yeah.
But either way, you see it all throughout history, and every single time this is what happens. And I don't know, it's like growing pains, and video games aren't 100% innocent either.
Oh, no. I wanted to make that point today, too.
As has been brought up in the chat here, the gotcha system and the way that it just like grabs hold of addictions and trends,
addictive tendencies,
all that stuff.
Yeah,
it has gotten to where there are certain games where maybe no one should ever play them. And I'm not going to name one.
Well, I mean, gambling, it's the same principle.
Exactly. But on the other end, to color all games as that, I brought this up as we talked a little bit yesterday about this topic. Like, if you were to say, oh, I'm a movie critic, and if people just assumed that because you're a movie critic, and then they associate with you with like the lowest level, like cheap entertainment movies that get made every year. There's tons of them. I don't know which ones are coming out now, but I do remember the ones from when we were teenagers.
Yes.
And it was stuff like American Pie, Road Trip,
yes.
The Van Wilder, I don't know.
There's plenty of bad film out there.
Tons of movies that are just made to be, it's just garbage for teenagers to consume so that they can feel edgy, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like good entertainment, in any way. But no, whenever you tell somebody you're a film critic, they don't associate you with that. They don't assume you're reviewing those movies. They assume that you're reviewing like Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
They assume that you're like, oh, yes, so Citizen Kane, yes, art criticism, very important,
Yeah.
And they'll talk to you about old movies and stuff, like, what's your opinion on, someone, George Méliès? Oh, yes, very good. But instead, with video games, they immediately jump to, like, whatever their 8-year-old kid is addicted to at the moment, and then assume that that's what you're doing, right? And it's like, well, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't. And I don't know. Like we actually know the guy who started Fortnite, like one of the producers at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like I've never actually played the game. I don't know if it's damaging actually. Like I don't know how bad it is or not. But my guess is that in moderation, if you only play it for like an hour a day or however much, maybe less, maybe more, it depends on the person, that it's a perfectly fine way. Like what else are you going to be doing,
Well, I think you can look at that because this is something I try to be really conscious of all the time. That I know all the stuff that I grew up that my parents didn't get and were fearful of. That I got, I understood it, I knew it wasn't what they were saying it was, and they just never understood it, and they always kind of feared it a little bit. And they were always like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, get outside, like whatever.
Right.
What are the things that I don't get that I'm going to share concern over that are also not a big deal like that, right?
And,
so
TikTok's one of them.
So I bring this point up for you, right? Because it is true. What you're saying is true. There are some dangers, but that's true with everything. There are some
all
dangers,
things in moderation, right?
Yeah, there are some dangers where certain susceptible groups could really be taken advantage of or fall into a really bad state of addiction or waste their life away. These things are possible to happen, but they happen on the fringe. They happen to very few people. Most people...
But you hear those stories and the media amplifies those
amplifies
stories.
them and uses them as cannon, as ammunition to drive fear about a thing to win political points or whatever, right? And so
all the time happens.
So with Fortnite, which is probably something we don't get, it's the generation after us or whatever. I would say a similar thing about RuneScape.
That was an absolute objective waste of time.
Yes,
it was such a waste of time. But I spent probably 400 hours into RuneScape. If I kept that down to like 40 or 20. That would have been the memories and the good times. If I was able to kind of like keep that down, and it was around the time when I moved. Remember, this was like 2003. So we moved to Denver, and I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody, and so I was like 5 or 6 hours a day, just like on RuneScape.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of really good memories of RuneScape.
But that's what I'm talking about. Because
I got to play with Landon too, because Landon stayed in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I was in Denver. But we played on RuneScape, so I would still get to connect with him. So a way
for you to connect with your brother.
That actually, I remember that very well.
And you made a lot of friends you would never have met.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Without that nexus.
Yeah.
Connecting you to them all over the world.
Totally.
And I mean, the same thing with things like Discord, right? Like, So I have had amazing friends that I have met through this little social media forum thing called Discord. In the work that I do, I talk to and interview a lot of times law enforcement investigators, and they only see this thing as a place where children are abused.
Predators and
so it's absolutely true. It's another prime example of the concept.
So then they would say, I'd never let my kid use Discord.
Here's another example of a thing that was designed for one thing that is being used to exploit and hurt children. That was an unintended consequence.
Young children probably shouldn't be on Discord.
They shouldn't.
I'm being serious about it.
I am too. I mean, that's a problem that they should address. Discord should address. Yes. And I fully believe that. However, what this officer said to me was something along the lines, I'm summarizing, not directly quoting, I don't see any use for this thing other than the most heinous evil in the world. And I'm sitting there, a person who runs a Discord server, interviewing this officer going,
like, do I educate him? No, just shut up, right?
I'm not going to respond to you because he was like literally tearing up when he said that. Ooh, he was like crying on camera as he was saying this to me.
Yeah, you can't say anything when that happens.
And it's like, this dude's probably in his 50s.
He's probably seen really messed up stuff that resulted from this. Yeah.
Right? As a result of interviewing these people, seeing their work, and trying to educate people about it. So I have two. But like, no. This thing is primary.
It's like a phone.
Like 95% of its use is great connection for people.
Right.
A way for me to connect with people I never would have met otherwise.
Right.
And it is an amazing tool for that, an amazing way to build friendships and things like that. And I know people in our Discord server have met up in real life.
Oh,
like
nice.
European people who live closer together. Those countries are small.
Yeah.
But, there's just this like sentiment about games that is exactly that kind of thing. It's like it's viewed in this way by like a whole bunch of people in our parents' generation and grandparents' generation. And that just has no one has ever been able to get through to them and show them what we have talked about for the last 3 years on this show. If you play Outer Wilds, you can have the experience of becoming more comfortable with your own mortality, with facing death, with looking that fear directly in the eyes and being able to become at peace with that concept.
Right.
That is something that absolutely describes a work of art to me. Something that can have you introspect in that way. If you play Xenogears and you learn more about the anima and animus and Carl Jung theory there, and you try to bring more balance and develop your inner opposite, all the philosophy that we've discussed about that game that has literally changed my worldviews, that has changed my life, that's a work of art.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And not almost, every single game that we have covered on this channel has in some way done that. Nier Automata, teaching me the dangers.
That's a big one.
As someone who is a public figure in whatever small way that I am, learning not to let that go to your head. If you try to be, philosophical entertainer. I like Alan Watts' way of saying it. Yeah. I am not a philosopher. However, we talk about a lot of philosophy, and it can really quickly go to your head when you get people sending messages to you. Your show has changed my life. You are amazing. Please never stop doing this. When you talked about this on the show, it reminded me of my relationship with my father. You have people writing these deeply personal, revering messages and praising you for the work you're doing. This thing can start growing so fast.
I must be an expert.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Nier Automata pointing directly in my face, stop taking yourself so seriously. Yeah. And Yoko Taro embodying that. Right? That is incredible.
Yeah, that's great.
Incredible life lessons, incredible introspection. This alone legitimizes this medium as an artistic medium worth being taken seriously by the world. So what am I doing, cowering in shame, when someone asks me what my podcast is about? What am I doing? Why am I not in the forefront, like telling them this? You don't understand. I think you get it for films. You've probably seen a movie that made you feel this way. Right. Did you know games do this too? Games are not Fortnite and Call of Duty. That's not the whole landscape.
and FIFA.
That's not the whole landscape. And so, I guess to answer the question directly, are you too old to be playing games? The answer is a resounding no.
Right.
But how do you fight with that sentiment eating at you? Am I too old? That's how I've been feeling. Am I too old to be doing this? Like, what should I be doing something different with my time? Is this a waste of time? Like,
no, no, it's not.
Sometimes it objectively isn't.
Right.
And based on the following that we've garnered and the messages they send and what I've learned from these people and the friendships that I've made, obviously it's not. Right. So why is that sentiment still buried in there somewhere eating at me like that?
Well, you can never totally escape the culture that you were born in, right? You can never totally escape. Yeah. And there's so much good to that as well, right? Like your culture gave you so much. But there's also things that that you might want to discard and escape from.
Right.
And well, it's just easier said than done for the most part, as it comes to that stuff. It's the water you swim in. It's like a fish trying to find a different lake. Like maybe you get lucky, a bird will pick you up and not kill you and accidentally drop you in a lake and, I'm in a new lake now. But there's problems with that. Like you don't really want to be in a totally new place. You want to retain most of the way that you were raised because that's what's comfortable. That's how you live, right? That's what you know. But at the same time, if I could say that lake's water has evaporated and has been replenished with new rain, right? So it's a new lake, even though it seems like the old lake, but it's a new lake because time has changed. As time moves forward, maybe I'm carrying the metaphor a little too far here, but as time moves forward, you do have to adapt, and it doesn't have to be the biggest adaptation, but you do have to adapt a little bit. And video games is the kind of thing, like when I'm 80, I don't know what games I'll be playing, but I don't see myself not playing any games.
Yeah.
Right?
Like just not doing it at all.
I have found too much. I'll play Xenogears for the 50th time. Let me get that Xenogears back. Let me try to see if I can play it again. And I could totally see myself doing that, know? And like, I remember this part. And like just reliving it through the game. And it is surprising that more people our age haven't jumped along with that. And I think maybe it's because the technology moves too fast, right? Where if like video games show up in the 90s, so it's like, oh great, the people who grew up in the 90s or the 80s or 90s, whatever, people who grew up in the 90s are going to have kids 20 years hence, and then those kids are going, and then they're going to be cool with their kids playing games. But the games we grew up with aren't the games being made now. Technology is moving too fast.
Them like we got ours.
And so it's like, yeah, we grew up comfortably surrounded by video games, but those video games, right? Not these video games, those video games, and they're quite different. And now, like, to compare, A Link to the Past to Fortnite is like, that's not even the same thing. Like, it doesn't even make sense to compare those.
Shouldn't we be comparing Breath of the Wild to A Link to the Past?
Fair enough, yes. Those are actually quite similar. Those are quite similar. But Skyward Sword maybe is compare that to A Link to the Past or to the original Zelda. You know?
I mean, you got people who have sort of like grown out of a series they used to like. I mean, obviously I know that very well, where it's changed enough to where you feel like it's lost the spirit of the thing.
That's sort of...
so now your kids are picking it up and there's almost like you don't get it. That's not what... Anyway, but I could see that being a thing with some people.
I could see people maybe being comfortable with certain video games in the 90s, like Super Mario, but then watching their kids play something like Fortnite or Minecraft for a long time every day and start to wonder, like, this isn't like... It's not like they grew up with the exact same thing. So even though they are called video games, what we have today is quite different from back then. And that just makes me think, my goodness, what we have today, how much more different it's still even going to be in 20 more years from now.
Yeah.
Technology is moving at a ridiculously fast rate.
I can't
And so
wait.
It's almost like there's no way to actually fully adapt to it. Even if you spend some time and adapt to the way the games are now, the amount of time it took you to learn to be okay with it, there will be a whole new thing, and like VR will be going and kids will be wearing that, and you'll be once again not prepared for that once it finally shows up in a big way. Everyone wearing Google glasses, remember? Everyone. I thought that by now we'd be all...
That wearable technology would have been caught on more.
Because Google Glass came out like 10
wearable
years ago.
Technology is not catching on.
It's not.
People
it's
don't
not.
like it.
But at some point it will, because everyone knows this is the future. Neuralink, all that kind of stuff,
I'm really curious.
Like Neuralink is something where I'm just like, you put that in your brain?
Yeah.
And everyone's going to do it, because once it's available, you have to do it, because otherwise you're not going to be competent. Yeah. It would be like somebody not having a cell phone in modern times, right? And being like, oh, write me a letter. You're applying for a job, and how can we contact you? Call me at my house line.
On my
leave a message
landline.
if there's. And I'm only available maybe between like 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. And so call me during that time, and I'll be sure to answer. Like, that's how things used to be, not that long ago, right? And so the concept of Neuralink, goodness, that's something that's going to be pushing me a lot, as the next generation is basically all going to be doing that kind of stuff, I think, maybe.
Or something like
it. Because, something like it. That's just like, I just got comfortable with the last thing. Why is there already a new thing,
Yeah. I am
it just moves so fast.
certain that if and when something similar to a holodeck is invented, right, the Star Trek holodeck, that will be a huge debate about you're living your life in this fake world
and
instead of in the real world.
People really will be living their whole lives. It won't be right away.
Of course, that's true. There will always be those people who get addicted to it, or who they struggle with relationships in the real world, and so they try to seek them there. But most
they'll be found dead in the
most people will understand the need for balance and be well-rounded individuals and live their lives and just use this for occasional entertainment.
I think so, but I'm talking like 100, 200 years in the future. There are philosopher people around now who are saying that, like, breathing the same air as other people will be seen in the same way as everyone drinking from the same lake, like in 1,000 years ago, right? That at some point, like, people are going to really be living a full life in basically the Matrix.
Isolated.
It'll basically be the Matrix. I mean, I'm not saying anything new here, This is what the dystopian people have been predicting for a long time. But at some point, it's going to happen. I don't know when. And even when that happens, I don't know.
The thing for me, though, and I'm not saying it's not possible, or that maybe even that it's not very possible, but they're literally always predicting this with new technology.
Yeah, like Google
and it
Glasses,
literally doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen.
People still get.
Yeah.
This is not something I should obsess over and like build my whole life around. It should just be a part of my life. I should adapt it for what uses it's good for, and for what it's not good for, and some people, some small percentage of people will, obviously it will hurt them because they have addictive tendencies or whatever. Just like World of Warcraft now. What I'm saying is that will remain true even for the Matrix and holodecks and wearable tech and whatever else comes along. I feel like I can't even remember. I read something that it was like a newspaper clipping from 1915 or something like that was talking about the telephone, right? And it was like
nice.
It was warning about like basically correctly predicting this device.
Oh, very nice.
But warning,
but saying it's bad,
saying like this is going to be a horrible thing.
And it might have really had a point.
maybe, but at the same time, I mean, like our society is functioning just fine.
I don't know.
Not memorizing phone numbers.
I wonder.
I mean, obviously there are the warnings of, well, what if a technology is developed that like EMP, like just all of our devices and technology gets like shut off overnight,
and no one knows how to make shoes anymore.
Nobody knows how to do anything. Like, okay, I get it, but like that still has never happened. And I guess it doesn't happen until it happens. But they literally predict this kind of apocalyptic stuff with every new technology. And there's all this fear-mongering about it. And it just doesn't happen.
Or it happens
because people don't want to destroy the world.
Yeah.
People don't want to do that. People kind of want to keep surviving, generally speaking.
I wonder about that. There's a new movement of people trying to...
destroy the world.
Well, just saying that suffering is not worth it. That the amount of suffering that exists in the world is not worth the continuance of allowing life.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people saying that.
Yeah.
And I am saying it's this many people, not this many people.
This many loud people.
Most people are well-rounded enough human beings to go, that's a dumb idea. I do not accept that.
I think you're right. Sometimes I wonder if a lot of the dystopian stuff that we have nowadays isn't being used as an instruction manual for certain people.
It's just it's alarmism that literally is going to come up with every new thing.
Right.
Because here's a new thing. I don't understand all the applications of this yet. Let me think of the worst ones it could be. We're programmed to do that.
Right. Because that is what happens.
Yeah.
Like this is how the military does things, right? As soon as Einstein creates his thing of like, oh my gosh, science is going to be great now. And it's like, oh, sick. Let's make a bomb out of that and kill 500,000 people with one bomb. Oh, dope. And Einstein's like, Yeah. But there is humans do have a tendency to negatively kind of use these technologies, and then we find out positive uses for them later, something like that. I don't know if that's always the case.
It's not always the case, right? But it is commonly
often the case. Yeah.
I feel like when speaking in generalities, which is what we tend to do on this channel, people keep moving forward, and the technologies they develop keep them moving forward. And every once in a while, there's going to be a collapse, or there's going to be a civilization that messes up.
A bubble's going to pop.
But like, generally speaking, the diagram is still moving up and to the right for the most part. Right. There are times when it gets bad, but like it kind of just keeps moving. Progress keeps happening.
Right.
And it's not like we're setting ourselves back so far that like it ruins everything. Again, there's fears of that, and there's legitimate fears of that, and the legitimate fear of that, the people thinking about all those terrible ways in which it can be applied, are the ones that are raising the concerns that other people look at and go, okay, how can we then avoid that?
Right.
And how can we set regulations? How can we fix this in a way to where we avoid that, but like keep the good things? And it generally just keeps moving this way.
There's something I've heard recently amongst like some group of smart people talking about something called the poly crisis. And they're saying that if you look close enough at every single field of experts in the world at the moment, they all say people don't realize there's this one thing and it's going to end everything. It's going to ruin everything. If only people realize, people are ignoring it. Nobody's paying attention. This is going to end everything. And in almost every single field, there is somebody saying that exact thing. And that at some point, well, first off, the likelihood is that none of those things are going to happen.
Yes.
But the probability is that one of those things is going to happen.
Yes.
Don't know which one. But they call it the poly crisis, that every single field at the moment is like headed towards this place where they're like, we can't go on. Like the whole this cannot continue.
This cannot continue.
And almost everywhere is kind of like feeling this, like this big impending, something's going to change. A lot of it has to do with AI, of course. like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, man. AI's gonna ruin / make everything better, right?
Yes.
Depending on who you are. But people, there's alarmists in every single field, and when the thing happens, those alarmists are then lifted up as like, oh, he predicted it, he got it right, he knew, he got it. Now everyone listen to him, right? And then he's starts to kind of maybe extend himself beyond his area of expertise and start predicting all the other crises everywhere else. I've seen this happen.
Gosh, I've seen this happen so much, dude. But an alarmist in one thing that might have gotten some things right. Now all of a sudden everyone looks to him for all this stuff. He has no idea what he's talking about.
Right. And it's sometimes you can tell.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've seen it happen many times.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. That's what Nier Automata taught me.
Yes.
That's the exact principle.
Yeah.
This dude who brought this thing up and got some things right here.
Right.
Bunch of people flock.
And it's like, ooh, let me start predicting.
I'm so smart.
Crypto.
Look at all this. Then they think they know. Then they think they know everything.
Well, these are the newspaper articles that get written, right? Like a man who predicted the 2016 election is predicting the next one. And as if, it's two options, 50-50, right? Like there were two people, right? A lot of people voted for both. Like the likelihood is that one of the two was going to win. So it's not that big of a deal. But anyways, people kind of lifted up because there were less people predicting one than the other. So then it's like, oh, and now let's listen to him on something else, right? Or a person who predicted the 2008 financial crisis now gives warning about a meteor hitting the earth. And it's like, but like, you don't know
anything about
those fields have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
So anyways, I actually really like what you're saying there, that basically these crises don't end up actually, well, they do, but maybe they happen in a softer way than they seem.
Yes.
It seems like this is going to end everything. And what really happens is we take a brief hit and we work around it and then
figure it out.
And then we continue moving. Right. Yeah. So to the extent that we are going to, there's a book written, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but Entertaining Ourselves to Death. Is what it is the concept.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. It was famous a couple years ago, I think, that we are entering into this consumer society
this Nietzsche's
of
last
entertainment.
Man.
Nietzsche's last man, exactly. Yeah. Well, once again, Nietzsche, the greatest alarmist of all time, of all time, who was really brilliant and did make some good predictions, I think. But that we are entering a time where I think people are getting really skeptical of media because. Like in particular, media going back through the ages, if you look at old plays, and media tended to actually be very religious and was closely connected with the church. And it was the morals. People get their morals from the media that they consume. That's been true for forever. And it's only in the last 100 years that media has kind of detached from that, maybe 200-300 years.
Religion, but certainly not from trying to instill values and morals and all that stuff.
It still does that. But that's what religion is. That's what I'm saying. It actually is still religion, as maybe ancient people would understand.
Just not the style, the particular.
It's edgy.
I don't know what to call it.
Religions typically didn't do the whole edgy thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's different. But it is, you're still getting your morals from it. You go to a theater, you watch a movie, you receive a story, right? The place that you would typically go to go and just listen to a professionally put on story was like a church or a temple, right? Going back, forever. And the stories were typically crafted
or the
for
campfire,
the people.
Which was the temples and churches of their time,
of the previous times. Exactly, it was just scale it up now, right? And then, so anyways, nowadays the church is basically the media. It's the news. It's the entertainment. The way that we get the entertainment from, but it's changed. It's different now, and the idea that media is. It's almost like the prediction that media will be our demise, right? The entertainment will be what ends us. That's what Nietzsche predicted. That's just what seems to be, okay, it's evident. Somehow we're just going to get like placated. We're going to have a drip of drugs in our arms. Everyone's going to be wearing VR. Everything's going to be taken care of just like the Matrix. You're just going to be in this thing because AI can do all the jobs. It doesn't need people anymore. Like this whole idea, right? This is the big thing people are talking about right now. Once AI and robots literally can do everything, what are humans going to do except play video games all day, right? And I don't know, like Amish sounds pretty sick to me. Have you read the book A Brave New World?
I think in high school I read that.
Yeah, it's a common high school curriculum book. There's the group of people in the society that have soma, and they're all just like tripping all the time.
Right.
They're just stoked about everything. They're super happy all the time. And then there's this other group of basically cavemen who are like living out there in with campfires and stuff. And these people are trying to be human and connected with nature still, whereas the other people are completely detached from it, living a completely different life than any human had ever lived before them. And then there's, a story of, one from each side, kind of, they meet each other and have this, crazy experience of just like, whoa, like, how do you live like that? And vice versa. How do you live like that? And I feel like you can kind of tell where people think things are going based on the media that's being shown to us. Things like The Matrix, things like all of the movies about the future where the AI takes over, they're all horror movies. Like none of them are like,
pretty much.
It's going to be great. And so that tells you where the zeitgeist is. This is how most people are feeling right now. And so when these new things pop up, gosh, I almost want to say, like, it sucks because it's your life. Like if it's your parents or if it's like your wife or something like that. Like, yeah, that's rough. But at the same time, there is this general sentiment amongst everybody that like something is going to show up and it's not going to go away, and it will be the thing, and this might be it. One day they'll actually be right, but in 200 years, right? But at the moment, it's like, nah, this isn't it. This isn't it. Video games aren't it.
Yeah, I think that there's that alarmist attitude that I remember kind of growing up with and feeling like, man, you guys just don't get it. You just don't. Whether it's politicians talking about games making kids violent, or whether it was, all sorts of bad faith, like sort of attempts to engage or not even engage, but just like fearmonger about things and deflect blame about certain issues onto this thing. It's the video games that are to blame, right?
Well, what do you think politicians do?
Yeah, I mean, that's all they do, man. It's literally all they do.
Yeah.
So that's why I have almost like just an immediate skepticism of this kind of alarmism in anything. It's like, and I think maybe you've felt some of this from me, because we'll be discussing AI or something that's concerning, and I'm almost always like, I don't think so.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's going to go that way.
And that's
so I'm
totally
probably
true.
a little too much that way.
Well, you can afford to be that at the moment. You don't have kids yet, but when you have kids, man, it just changes the way you look at everything.
It's just more or less my experience with it. Anytime, and this even goes along with some of the stuff we talked about in a previous episode with like all of the anti-woke sentiment, or the other way around, all the people raising alarms.
The anti-woke.
I hate that word so much. Gosh dang it, I hate using it. Anyway, there's all this alarmism, and it becomes so extreme and so like absolutely obsessive, to a point where I think a very apt story comparison, since that's what we like to do with archetypes, is Boy Who Cried Wolf. There is a certain level to which you repeat this sentiment, this fear, this thing so freaking much, and it's just never, ever, ever what you are talking it up to be.
That's a good analogy.
That's you are ill preparing people from any kind of real threat.
Yeah.
Because they're going to stop listening to you if you keep saying this word over and over and over again.
You know what makes me really depressed? That's not what's happening. You did for you, and maybe for certain people.
Yeah.
Can you count how many times the media, the news people have lied to you? And can you count how many times politicians, your specific state ones or the federal ones, have lied to you? It's uncountable. It is so high, but nobody cares.
Well,
everyone still says, "Oh, the New York Times wrote this," or this politician promised so and so, you better vote for him. And it's like, are you kidding me? How many times do you have to get lied to before you realize that these people are all lying to you all the time?
So, this is the thing. I'm doing it again. I'm sorry.
Well, but I'm just saying, the Boy Who Cried Wolf, the moral isn't happening. Yes, the crying wolf is happening.
I think it is.
But people aren't listening. I
don't know a single person in real life who I speak to face who believes that the news is telling them the truth.
That's hilarious.
I
Because
literally
our whole
don't
society,
know one person
our whole
who
society,
does not distrust the media.
Our whole society functions on the media telling us what is happening. And here's the thing. We live in a democracy. You can just not vote, right? That's fine, I suppose. But when I say you've got to vote for someone, I'm not saying you have to, really, right? But if you're participating in the system that is set up, you have to vote for someone, right? And they all lied to you. But yet you're still going to write their name on the piece of paper and say, well, he lied the least number of times, and put that in the Dropbox. And it's like, what are you doing? You're participating in a system of lies. But that's the system that we have. That you almost don't have a choice but to pick one and believe them.
It's tough because, man, we're going down a rabbit hole for real with this one.
I love this.
I'm trying to think how I'm going to rope this back into my too old to play games. But the thing that's tough about this is you catch the news in what appears to be deceit or lying.
Right.
And there's almost an assumption just created in that act. I can't trust you anymore. I don't know if you're lying to me. The assumption is you always lie to me. I don't think they always lie.
Right.
They lie when it's convenient to lie.
Yes.
They lie
which is often.
Which is often.
Yeah.
But it's not always.
But they are not always lying.
But so that just makes the water so muddy that now it's like, when am I getting truthful, accurate news and when am I not? And the problem is that this source will lie about the things it lies about that are convenient.
Right.
And so everyone turns to this alternative source, but they're lying to you possibly a lot more.
Sure.
And like they're all literally doing it.
Yeah,
but
totally.
this is not like some revelation. This is human nature.
Yes.
Just downgrade the scale of this into your local community, into your workplace, into your family. People are lying to you there too. Lying is human nature.
Yes, but you brought up the boy who cried wolf analogy of,
yes.
Well, it's a good thing because people will stop believing them.
But I think that's exactly what's happened. Nobody believes the freaking media.
I don't know. I see people sharing news articles every day, all the time, saying, hey, can you believe this happened? Look at this.
The ones that confirm their already held beliefs. They're not believing them. It's just that's echoing what I already believe.
This is it. It's not, okay, I see what you're saying, Kay. So they're not saying, I believe the news. They're saying, look, the news believes me.
Yes, that's what's happening.
And then they're sharing it as though they're the...
Yes. That's what's psychologically actually happening.
That's brilliant.
They don't really believe these people.
I wonder if anyone...
Particularly any time that same source then says something contradictory they believe, they're not going to believe it.
Okay, that's so dumb.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's the problem is inside the individual human being, not it is, but it's, and this is actually something I failed to say in the last episode when I was talking in the beginning, and I was kind of doing my admonishing the audience to look your enemy in the eye and see compassion, the whole Lord of the Rings thing.
Right.
This is something that I had thought about bringing up then, but then kind of failed to do. The only way to find peace in your life is right here. You're not going to find it out there.
Yes.
You're not going to find it. And this is by no means me telling anyone not to get involved in whatever, what's the word I'm looking for? Cause that you believe in, that you think should be advanced in the world and that would make life better for people. But what I'm saying is it's very easy to get caught up in this idea that you, in your fight out there, are going to find the inner peace that you're looking for. That by being a mover in the world and going out there and accomplishing something great and like pushing society into the direction you think it should go, that in that pursuit, you're going to feel like, oh, I am a person who's worthy of love and all these things that we all struggle with in here. Yeah. Right? And too many people
but it doesn't. That's the story
are looking for it out there. Yeah. And that's why we get all of this arguing and fighting, and because people feel like you're preventing me from finding that happiness and peace I'm searching for out here in the world. Yeah. You're getting in my way.
Outside.
You're resisting my movement. You're my enemy. The problem is that you're never going to find it out there anyways. There is nowhere. You have to fight the demons here.
Yeah.
to find the peace and happiness that you're looking for. I talked about in that last episode about how people are really hurting. I can see the pain, widespread, and I see how many people are struggling. And it's when we talk about it in the media and politicians, we're always talking about it out there. And again, I am by no means saying it's not a good thing to make a healthier economy and, bring, a higher quality of life to more people. That's a great start when people aren't out there struggling just to put food on their table or to be able to afford lodging. Like, that's obviously the basic level of the hierarchy of needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. You have that. And so I'm not telling anyone, I'm not discouraging you from getting out there and doing good work and helping more people to get into better situations. What I'm saying is that all that stuff out there doesn't make you happy.
Right.
You get to that next level. Say you were in this economic situation. It wasn't that long ago that we were living 6 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment, living off of, I don't know,
ramen noodles,
$500 a month tops.
Yeah.
We were as poor as it gets in this country.
Right.
And I often remember those times feeling happier than I am in a much better economic situation now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this stuff is necessary to live and survive, and that's a great part of being happy is being alive in the first place.
Step one, so be alive.
I'm all for whatever movement we can do to help people live a higher quality of life and not worry about those basic needs, right?
Yeah.
I advocate for that 100%. Go out there and help make that happen. Increase people's well-being. Wonderful thing. It's still not going to make people happy. It's not going to get people over all of those demons and ugly things that they feel about themselves and all that deep pain that's going on in here. You're not going to find an answer to that in that fight out there. You're going to have to go inside. The Hell Is Us game title that we were kind of talking about last time.
We don't have to actually play the game. We keep bringing it up.
And so I see all the vitriol and all the people concerned and all the anxiety and all the people fighting. We got to stop this woke stuff out there in the media. It's ruining our society. You are digging a hole deeper in here by engaging so obsessively in that rhetoric. You are destroying yourself.
Right. I think so. I think that's true.
Like, I am not saying this to, in any way, shape, or form, like, talk down to people or be condescending. If it's coming across that way, it's not my intention, and I apologize. I'm talking from experience. I have been through some absolutely horrifically bad, dark depression. I have attempted suicide. I have been in the absolute pit of suffering in here, and it doesn't go away. It chases me. I think I find an answer. I think here's the thing that helps me. Gratitude. How about like this or this or this? And I'm always trying and I'm always striving to try like overcome this, and it just chases me. And it's because I'm not going to find it. Right. I'm not going to find it from the therapist I go talk to. I'm not going to find it from the medication. I'm not going to I've got to get in here and find out, why do I believe these things about myself? And the therapist can help you in that process, but they're not going to fix it. You got to do that work internally. I don't know what any of this has to do with I'm too old to play video games, other than this level of alarmist rhetoric going on, which includes the way we were taught that it's a waste of time to be doing this.
Kids are going to ruin their lives these days.
I think it's a good idea to not tune that stuff off, but to tune it down.
Oh, very good.
Because so much of it is boy crying wolf.
Right.
I would say 99% of it is boy crying wolf. So when we're having conversations about AI, as I'm taking you back to the train station or whatever, and it sounds like I'm being dismissive, like, dude, this is not going to be an issue. People are going to reject AI. It's already happening. Like
as long as they know it's AI.
First application, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Right. And then a person who's an expert at that thing looks at it and goes, this is freaking garbage.
Yes.
Look at all the fundamentally wrong things with this. And I've experienced that, where I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to make making videos so much easier. I'm going to create an AI voice
of your
for
voice,
myself, and I'll just type my scripts.
Pretty good.
It sounded pretty good on its face,
Right.
and then you actually start listening to that, and it's like, dude, I would never say this way.
Yeah.
This is totally wrong. And you try to do it again and again and again and again, and he's not saying it right. Might as well just get my freaking microphone out and record the damn thing myself. It's not helping. It's not making it easier. It sounds wrong. It doesn't sound human. It doesn't sound like me.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that AI, for whatever leaps it has taken in recent times, is not the same as a human being. And human beings can see through that. And it's not going to replace us. I really don't think it will. I do think that it will make certain things better in our society. And there are going to be, and just like all these other technologies, all of these technologies, it's not going to be a doom. Right. Like they thought the telephone was going to be in 1915,
or books,
books in Socrates' times, or whatever. Yeah. It's not, and it will be for some people who are susceptible and have certain issues and addictive tendencies. There will be problems that need to be addressed and needs to be regulated for whatever reason. But in general, I think we will figure out the technology. We will figure out its good applications. We will keep those. We will have some pitfalls and take some steps back, but we will work around them because that's what we've always freaking done. And we need to, we're kind of, this is sort of, I'm stretching to find a connection here to the original topic, but I feel like maybe I'm experiencing some of those pitfalls in my whatever personal calling to like legitimize this art form to people, where I feel like I don't know how to talk about this with like regular human beings out there instead of all my Discord weebs. But I think I want to make the mission of this show to do exactly that. To whatever degree this little corner is capable of doing so. There are also, of course, lots of bigger channels and bigger people out there who are doing the same work,
or doing the opposite work, of course.
Yes, but you know, it's a diagram that goes down and up, but mostly up and to.
But mostly up, because yes, I like everything you said. You know what's really funny? There have been several times where I've brought up certain things to you, and you have given me a voice of comfort that has actually really helped me. I feel like this might be another one of those times.
I'm glad.
And it's so funny because
hopefully I'm not totally wrong.
A lot of well, see, unfortunately, this is the problem, because the price of you being wrong, unfortunately, is really high. And this is why, evolutionarily speaking, the people are skeptical of new stuff, right? Because it's like, oh, it might help me a little bit, but how much might it hurt me? It might end civilization, you say. I don't know if I'm going to invite that thing that can
want to test or play with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have many times spoken things that have made me kind of realize maybe this isn't that big a deal. Now, some things are a big deal.
They are. But they're just
some things
they're not end of the world deal.
Yes, exactly.
The way that Boy Who Cried Wolf, and there's a million boys crying wolf all around us all the time.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Are making it
you might be a little too far in the, like, it'll work itself out direction.
I'm sure I am.
But it's important
to
have people like you to balance it, because there are certainly many people who are way too far the other side. And I even think that
those people make a lot of money, which incentivizes them to be more that way.
Whereas it's all good, guys, don't worry about it, people. I don't think they make as much money.
We don't make as much money. We don't make any money, in fact. No one listens to us because it's not scary enough.
No, because you didn't predict any predictions correctly.
It's not scary enough. I got to be scary.
Well, actually, no, what's funny, you actually predicted more things correctly. They're just not the things the news cares to talk about.
Recognize
and Mike was right, because he predicted that everything would be just fine. And things were just fine. Let's bring Mike on for an interview.
I guess I was being slightly alarmist about like our episode on like corporations.
Yes.
I definitely don't like corporations. I'm very alarmist when it comes to corporations.
You're mildly alarmed.
I'm not always this way. I got an answer from Riker's Beard I'd like to look at. There's a good argument to be made that maybe taking advantage of people's unhappiness and emotional stability is the point. But otherwise, I agree. AI is largely bullshit. It's 100% marketing. It's just a computer science term for learned algorithms, data collection and recall, repurposed to generate investor hype.
Yes, this is all once again. Oh, that's the one thing you're alarmist about. Might actually be the
that
the
might
one
be the
thing.
might be maybe I'm just right.
You're just right.
Generally speaking, I'm
I
not.
love
I'm
that.
joking. People.
Here, take a picture of Mike. Put a thought bubble.
My head's already growing. I gotta pop it. Real AI, as we know it, they call it AGI, is
Artificial General
minimum
Intelligence.
50 years away.
Okay, but it's still
nothing
coming.
close to what it is you're talking about in the current year, except maybe some obscure military tech we don't know
Okay,
about.
so right, the military stuff, which is of course what it will be used for first, obviously.
But almost always.
But okay, see, here's the thing: where you can say 50 years.
We'll kind of be alive,
probably not.
maybe.
If,
May or may not
if
be.
Keith,
If Keith succeeds,
if Keith succeeds, we might still be alive. But my kids will still be around. That's part of the worry too, where it's like when people say, "Oh, that's 100 years away." I'm thinking differently now than I did before I had kids, because I would think 50 years away, dude, I'm not going to live to be 90. Like, that doesn't affect me. Oh crap, my kids are going to have to go through that, man. My kids are going to have to, anyways. It introduces a whole, or their kids or whatever it is, introduces a whole different dynamic to the point where I can sympathize maybe with people like your parents
Sure.
or other people who are like, video games are going to hurt you, and it's like, okay, I get it. I really do understand it. But bro, I grew up in the 90s. Video games are fine. Yeah. Right? Like yeah. I can meet you a little bit of the way, but then also kind of like come back at you a little bit and say, look, man, I get what you're saying, dude, but have you played Chrono Trigger?
I know.
Come on, man.
Have you looked the enemy in the eye?
Yeah, exactly.
And most of the time, the answer is no.
What they say, the analogy there is, have you looked through Galileo's telescope, right? Because if you remember, Galileo was saying, hey, guys, look, I discovered there's moons and there's rings around Jupiter. And the authorities at the time were like, no, that can't be true. And he was like, just look. Just look.
Just like, fetching
just
look at it.
And they refused to look, and they condemned him and put him in prison and all that stuff, but without ever even just checking to see if maybe
not even
he was right. Yeah.
Yeah,
which he was.
I think that has become my new mantra. Look your enemy in the eye and see compassion. Or that is literally the most profound thing I've ever read, and it came from Fellowship of the Ring.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
It's unbelievable how much that resonates with me. And I think it's the answer to basically every problem that we have with each other as human beings.
Yes. And you've mentioned this in the past, maybe a year or two ago, but that there are the puppet masters up here who want you to just be upset at each other, right? And the answer is not to be upset at each other, right?
There's no reason to be.
The answer is...
There's really no reason to be if you are
You're just playing into the game, right? You're playing into the game.
Yes.
The game they want you
and
to
the
play
thing
in.
that's tough about this is like we look at the puppet masters you're talking about as the established mainstream media and the politicians and the people in those levels of power.
Whoever's
But the thing is that we have new sets of puppet masters, and they paint themselves out to be the resistance to those dudes.
And they're just the other set of puppet masters.
They are another set of puppet masters on this alternative media, which is YouTube and podcasts and whatnot. Sure.
Do our bidding, puppets. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, man, don't listen to what people tell you to be afraid of. Go look at it. If someone tells you to be afraid of something, what you should do is walk out your door and go look that thing in the face.
Yeah, but here's the thing, be afraid of it. There's lions. Once again, I'm bringing up the evolutionary argument. Oh, what's the cost if you're wrong? What's the cost if you're right?
Well,
the benefit is you can have a friend. The bad part is you got murdered.
Would you rather die in the pursuit of loving your neighbor, or would you rather live in the hellscape of hating everyone around you?
Yes. Okay, this is why death is so important. Because imagine you can't say that in an immortal world where death is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
Right? You can't say that. In that case, it's like, I'll stave things off as long as I can. What are you talking about? I don't have to go look at anyone's telescope. But if you know you're going to die, the only question is, when are you going to die? And how are you going to die? And one of those questions is, are you going to die afraid, cowering of the world in a bed? Or are you going to die confronting the world bravely, like a freaking Beowulf,
That's
are you going to die like alone, or are you going to die with
That's
companions?
what all of our stories tell us.
Yeah.
And that's what we all believe is the answer.
I love that answer.
Do we have the courage to actually live that principle?
And very few people do. Those are the people. Those are important people.
By the way,
and I agree with you.
I'll tie this back to the topic. I learned literally all of this from video games and Lord of the Rings.
Dope. Dope.
I learned this from Xenogears. I learned this from Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah.
I learned this from Outer Wilds. I learned this from Final Fantasy.
Nier Automata.
I learned this from Nier Automata.
Yeah, Xenosaga.
I learned this from games, people. And of course, the people who made those games learned it from Carl Jung and the people that influenced them, and they learned it from freaking people before them. And it's the collective unconscious, whatever that is, if it exists. I don't know, as a real construct or as just
something
a concept.
like it exists. I don't know.
Whatever. But I find it to be true.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. We will be back next week with another episode. Look forward to it. If you like the video, please like, subscribe. And if you want to support the show, please check out our Patreon page. We have a good time chatting with people. We do it here live when we're doing this, but we also have a planning session in which we talk with our Inner Sanctum members live. I do a Sunday live stream where I talk with the Inner Sanctum, and we have a great time. So check it out. See you guys next time. Peace out.
Peace.